Hello, Yichao Martins, licensed marriage and family therapist, couples therapist. So today we're on day 6 or the 6 episodes of the fighting styles. And you might be curious to know, so among all the fighting styles you talked about, which one indicates the highest risk of divorce? That's a very tricky question. I do not have the data, unfortunately, but I do have some information based on my private practice and based on what I observe, and I have a theory. So if you want to hear it, I will share it, but it's not backed up by longitudinal studies by any chance. It's more of my assumption based on theory and based on my own observation in my own private practice. So today, the fighting style number 6 indicates the highest divorce rate, in my opinion. Let me tell you why. So it is called the never fighting couples. Have you seen those couples? They're just present themselves as they never have conflicts. They're very successful, and then they are contributing members in their community, and then they also seem so calm around with each other, where they never really indicate any disagreements between the two of them. They're always on the same page, at least for people outside of their relationship. So we still go from the attachment styles, arousal levels, co-regulation, and the couples dynamics. And then I'll give you a real life example. So let's start with the attachment styles. So this, you may have a wild guess already. This type of couple tend to have the avoidant and avoidant attachment style. That means they tend to gravitate towards solving their own problems, resolving their own issues, absorb their own arousals. And so they, in their attachment, they don't really depend on other people easily to manage their own arousal, to regulate their mood, or to meet their needs. They're very self-sufficient. In some way, they feel like they're just islands. You may ask, why do two islands get together for a committed relationship? Well, sometimes they do. They find comfortable around each other because they have a similar levels of needs and dependency for the other person. In the arousal level, you can imagine is this kind of fight. It's not a fight, really. They're hypo aroused, which means they're not aroused enough to the point that they're so frustrated with each other on their differences. So it seems like they don't have any conflicts, but is that true though? Well, we'll talk about that later. So they do not co-regulate. As we talked about before, people who have more like an avoidant attachment style tend to like to regulate themselves. They have aversion to regulate, to be regulated by other people. And that could come up from being the child where the caregiver is consistently not available, that their needs were shamed. So they learn that it's much safer if I just rely on myself and meet my own needs, manage my own arousals. May that be I'm sexually aroused, or I have a need for food, or I'm stressed, I want to calm down. So does it mean this kind of couples don't have differences and conflicts? No, by no means. They actually do, just like regular people, right? Because we're all different. Differences is the default. But they tend to absorb it by themselves. If they're upset about something, they think, well, let me just take a walk or work out and do something to make myself feel better. And they don't always bring up the issues. Actually, they never bring up the issues. The couple dynamic is they either tend to be people pleasers themselves, that are always trying to kind of like a chameleon, trying to transform themselves to fit in so the other person won't be upset with them. Or they could be growing up with parents that are highly volatile, the fighters, the mirroring fighters, that their nervous system got so traumatized by that, and they're looking for a partner that's calm, just like them, soft-spoken, never raise their voices, never bring up differences. Everything just, they want everything to be easy and peaceful. So they don't talk about their differences. But does the difference go away? No, you probably guess it never goes away. So you see couples that don't fight, and then they trying to absorb their own unhappiness and this disagreement and discontent to the point that they can't hold it anymore, and they let out some grudges, either by passive aggressively not doing something their partner asks them to do, or they disconnect themselves by going into work or hobbies or being with friends when it's actually time to connect with their partner. And or they have a quick and short discharge of their aggression and discontent, but it's not even rise to a certain point yet. They wanted to kill right away because they're so not used to high level arousal in their body. They throw it under the rug, and as if nothing happens. They don't never talk about it, even though they never resolved it. And then until the next time, which is gonna be months from now. And guess why the divorce rate is so high? I see a lot of couples who've been together for 20, 30 years until their children grow up and go to college, and then they don't have shared responsibility anymore, and they just suddenly divorce. One partner bringing up a divorce, they're well prepared, determined, go for it with attorneys hired. The other one might be shocked that I never knew you were unhappy in this relationship. But there were plenty cues. They just don't want to delve into it. They don't want to go deep into it. They just want it to be nice. So this is the highest chance of divorce. It's almost like a pressure cooker. If you don't let off some steam, at some point it's going to explode and there's going to be stuff everywhere. While the couples tend to have some fights and let out of the steam, at least talk about their unhappiness and what's going on, they have a better chance of being in a longer relationship, even though they might be fighting over the same issue, perpetual issue over and over. So I kind of give you the real life example, and I don't need to put a name on it. So like a couple that's been together for 20 to 30 years, and they're just a really modern couple in the community. They are volunteering, they attend church fundraising, and they're always like show up at the community events, and they volunteer for their children's school, and they seem to be very collaborative in a way. But if you notice closer, they actually operate on their own single track. They're kind of parallel. Say if the mother is in charge of the school after school activities and the school functions, volunteering and all that, and the father is in charge of making money and paying the bills, managing their finances, they seem to have a good division of labor there, but their paths don't seem to cross as much. They just divide and conquer. It's like, this is my turf, you don't. I call the shots in this department, and for the mother, I call the shots in this department when they come to school. So you don't get involved with my internal business, and they don't really need to bring up their differences. They can just absorb it that way. They put it in their own compartment, and until the children go to college, and suddenly they were like, "Well, the mortgage is kind of paid off. The children are going to college now, so our business front of the relationship and the co-parenting subsystems are kind of fulfilled, but they never actually integrated difference and to build their friendship." And there's intimacy, sexual intimacy, after 20, 30 years is kind of getting repetitive and worn out as well. There's no new energy bringing in to recycle and to rejuvenate the relationship. Then it's dead. And then you often hear couples say, well, we grow apart, we're not connecting, there's nothing in common that we have, that I'm okay just by myself. And why be with another person? It's kind of sad, isn't it? You think that you're doing good by not fighting, but then you also never get to learn about who your partner really is, truly is, what they really think and feel, what they really believe in, what's important to them. It's through those fightings, through those conflict resolution, through those negotiation, you get to know what's the essential part of your partner. And the more you get to know that, the more you feel connected to them, the more intimacy you have. And then your relationship actually gets closer and stronger. So among all these 6 styles of fighting, doesn't seem like any one of them is ideal. Don't worry, I will bring the last one, fighting style number 7, next week to close our series on the fighting styles. Well, stay tuned. See you next week.